Jurga Žąsinaitė, welcome here in Romania. I have to confess that I'm in a weak position because I was a teacher of Armenian. I'm not a teacher of English. You're a teacher of English, so you speak better than me the English, and I know that because we met 7 years ago, isn't it,
true.
in China, during a huge festival as anything is Chinese in Ningbo,
Yes.
close to Shanghai. Do you remember that festival?
Oh, yes, I do remember it very well. And I actually brought very good memories from it. I made so many contacts and actually I met you, I met your colleagues.
Yes, we had a brilliant delegation, Horia Gârbe and Svan Voncu. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And well, the most important thing actually from China, and mainly the reason why I'm so grateful for the destiny that I met you, is that I started to analyze some links between Romanian literature and Lithuanian literature, or more precisely, some connections between two historical personalities. And I'm talking about Tito Majorescu's daughter, Livia Majorescu, who lived in Lithuania.
Yeah?
She
I
married
didn't know
our...
that.
Yes, it's an... And actually, I wrote a historical novel, but it's in manuscript. I am investigating all her life, all her activities. I mean, Livia Majorescu, because she married in somewhere at the beginning of the 20th century, 1905, and from Berlin, where she lived with her mother. Because, as far as I know, Tito Majorescu separated from her first wife, and she went to Berlin because Livia's mother was German. So she met our Lithuanian nobleman, Eugenijus Dimša, who was an engineer who constructed the majority of bridges in St. Petersburg.
St. Petersburg has a lot of bridges.
Yeah, but he
I was in St. Petersburg on 21st of June during the whitest white night.
Oh, yeah. So, well, coming back to Livia, they married and they went to Lithuania from Berlin. They met in Berlin. They went to a Lithuanian, quite little town, Rokiškis. They bought a very...
Could you read some article for that biography of Livia Majorescu? Because I don't know if we have in Romania something like that, to publish it in a Romanian cultural magazine. Please do it.
Okay.
Now let's start with the beginning. It's for the first time you're here in Romania.
Yes.
Yes,
I am.
And do you like this city, Iași? Yes,
it's an amazing city. It reminds of our literature culture. Actually, I'm from some town natively from Anykščiai. I'm not from capital Vilnius, and it reminds me. Iași reminds me so of my native town. Because Anykščiai...
Which is the connection? The spirituality, the Christianity, architecture?
Not architecture, but the atmosphere of some, I don't know, literature mood, intellectual...
and the gardens.
Something like... I can't precisely tell what it is, but it just reminds me of my native town. So I have very good feeling being here. But I have to confess that I haven't had proper tour around all the places here, so I hope I will do it till Saturday.
Maybe Iași is one of the capital of Romanian literature. When you discuss about Romanian literature, the modernity of our literature comes from very beginning of 19th century.
Oh, yes.
But I heard you're teaching the Baroque in Lithuanian culture. It means that your modernity comes before the Romanian one.
Yes, it's not Baroque actually. The beginning of Enlightenment. My lectures. But
Enlightenment, I mean illuminare.
Yes.
Illuminism.
Exactly, yeah. So this epoch of education.
18th century.
The end of 18th century, the beginning of 19th. But it still has, of course, connections with Baroque. So you asked about Romanian.
Because till the beginning of 19th century, the Romanian literature was very closely connected to religious texts and some influences coming from the Slavic culture, Latin culture in the western part of the country. In the 18th century, we started to have our literature, and in the 19th century, the literature expanded.
Yes.
But the history of the Romanian literature has around 250 years.
Well, talking about Lithuanian literature, it's pretty the same, but we count our... we say that Lithuanian literature, the history of Lithuanian literature started from the 18th century and even 16th, where our first Lithuanian author, Martynas Mažvydas, published the first Lithuanian text, which was in 1547. We have to remember this date by heart. All people at school know this. But, you know, there were sermons like religious literature.
Our first Romanian text comes from 1541, a letter. Neautorizată is the name of the author. He wrote a letter about some invasion coming to the Romanian regions. But to be with Lithuanian is a very interesting thing. Lithuania is a small country.
Yes,
but
it used
with a large history, because the Lithuanian history belonged to a large kingdom, very glorious, very prestigious.
Yes, because we used to have the Grand Duchy of
You
Lithuania.
have a PhD on that, isn't it?
Yes. The topic of my thesis was Grodno, which now belongs to Russia, but used to be a very big cultural political center of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. So
Which period?
The second half of the 18th century, just the very end of the 18th century, where the starosta was some Antanas Tyzenhauzas, who was German origin. So he came from German. Actually, all Lithuanian history was created by foreigners.
So, you're teaching Lithuanian literature.
The old Lithuanian literature.
Yes, but when did you have the awareness that you're gifted for literature, to be a poet or a novelist?
What I definitely knew that I wanted to study literature after school, secondary school. So I decided to become a philologist. I started studying literature, and then somehow, step by step, I realized that I want to know more about this old Lithuanian literature.
It's a contamination.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes, and you started with prose or with poetry?
With prose.
With prose.
Yes, poetry.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because usually all the writers, they started with poems. We have brilliant criticists in Romania, like Nicolae Manorescu, the former president of the Union. He started with poems, and he understood that he's not gifted for that.
Yeah, for me, poetry is
a consequence.
More difficult thing. As far as I understand, you have to be more mature for poetry. But it could be only my personal opinion. I felt myself that I should start from prose, from something not going so deep. And because poetry has such a feature, you have to put yourself
cut deeper.
Yeah, to cut deeper and not go, into the surface.
Yes, you're very right. The humankind has three dimensions of his depth: mathematics, music, and poetry. Hardcore of the humanity come from those three dimensions, more abstracts.
Yeah, and absolutely agree.
But I had a discussion here on the podcast Casa cu Absidă, and they told me, the writers coming from Moldavia, about their concern about the historical environment of the country, a former country from the Soviet Union, the situation existing now with aggression of Russia and so on and so on, that all this situation influenced their works. What about you? Because Lithuania has in some way the same position like Moldavia. I mean, with a shadow going toward the Baltic states.
Yes, you can't stand apart from all these problems. But you see, I somehow consider poetry to be it's like a jewelry, and you can't use poetry for those daily problems. But this is only my somehow attitude.
You came down.
Yeah, but you can talk about these actualities, about these things that really hurt you in some way which is called in poetry a zope language or something, when you hide something.
I mean, you share the opinion of Mallarmé, Paul Valéry. The poetry has to be some way up from the reality.
That's what I wanted
and without a short-term concerns.
Thank you for reminding that this was the quote of Mallarmé.
Yeah. So, between the balance between ethics and aesthetics, you think that the poetry has to avoid the huge involvement to the ethic position. Yes. Very well, but you, a citizen, which is a link between the citizen Jurga and the writer Jurga, because there is a long debate in the literature about the link between author and the masterpieces he wrote. So Sainte-Beuve, for example, he thought that you have to make a distinction between them. Marcel Proust thought that it has to be closer, and so on and so on. Which is we can explain what is the Jurga Žąsinaitė reading her novels or poems. We can guess who's Jurga.
I remember studies at the university. We are told and taught not to mix authors and personalities as real people. So I try to hide in the poetry and my fiction that I write.
Why? You have secrets?
Everybody has. And maybe those things that I have as a person, as a real, like the one that I am in Passport, they shouldn't be somehow, they shouldn't act in my fiction, in my creative works.
So, among the characters, the heroes, the protagonists of your works, you don't have a character named I, myself. No. Interesting.
Maybe it's
you're
not time.
You're an observer. You're not an insider.
I am an observer. Yes,
and what do you observe?
Sometimes I observe even myself and how I behave.
How you are mirrored in the reality.
Yes. And it's quite interesting, but it's difficult because you have to be, it's easier to observe others than yourself.
I like to observe others. Sometimes I look a couple of hours, people passing in front of my eyes. So then I try to understand what they are, looking their appearances. And your novels are historical or about present?
Mainly historical novels.
Historical, not about contemporary issues. No.
There are...
Historical which period? The period you studied?
18th century, the end of 18th century, mainly the same, my stories share the same topics.
So they are linked with what you're focused on your researches?
Yes. Because I gathered huge information. I was, investigating all those sources in Warsaw, in Krakow, in Poland, in Belarus, and I actually spent so many times there, and I gathered very much information. So somehow very egoistic and don't want to lose this information, so that's why I'm using them into fiction.
But I want to put you a question. I wrote a book, the Book of Whispers. The Book of Whispers was translated into Armenian. It was the first novel translated directly from Romanian to Armenian, because till then, all the translations, they follow the path to Russian language, from Romania to Russian and from Russian to Armenian. Because in my book, the Armenians, characters of the book, they lived in Western Turkey or in Constantinople. They express themselves with the Western Armenian. In Yerevan, they speak the Eastern Armenian. There are not so many differences, but there are.
Dialects.
This is the reason why they published the book in Yerevan. The descriptions are in Eastern Armenian, but the dialogues are in Western Armenian, because it's very strange to put in the mouth of the, a poet living, Daniel Varujan, living in Constantinople, the dialect from Yerevan.
Yes.
My question for you, there are some differences between the Lithuanians spoken 250, and you put in the mouth of your protagonist the idiom from that time.
Yes, and that actually complicated.
That is not a little bit strange to write?
It is strange, but it's unique. But again, it's, it lessens the popularity of your book, of your work, because it's difficult to read. What I did with the last historical novel, which is called Memento Grodno. It's like Memento Grodno. Grodno is a town that belonged to Lithuania. So I put those words of Antanas Tyzenhausas, Anton Tyzenhaus, who, as I mentioned before, was the starosta of Grodno. I put like in quotes, but I tried to put all his words with some mixture of Polish language in unique way, so it's very difficult to read. And one translator wanted to, because I was nominated for this novel, and one translator wanted to translate my work into English. He said, no, this is impossible, because when you can't translate.
Is the syntax different?
Syntax, everything, like even endings, even the meaning of the words.
Yes, the meaning.
And some words are gone already. Yes. They are not used in colloquial.
For example, for us, it's very difficult to speak in Latin.
Yeah.
Because our connections in our mind are completely different from that time. But you do a brilliant thing. When I was a child, I read Spartacus, written by Raffaello Giovannioli, or Quo Vadis Domine, Sienkiewicz, or Le Roi Maudit de Maurice Dron. I understood more from that novel than the textbooks of the history. And it's brilliant that you could make the description, because literature convinces more better than the history.
Yes,
because provide emotions, and the suffering has name, and so on and so on. And it's brilliant. This is about your prose. What about poetry now? Because you came here, you were invited here as poet.
Yes.
And I heard some of your poems and translated into Romanian, and because you expressed yourself in English. But it's very interesting for us to hear your poems in your mother tongue. It's possible to speak... To
quote some, to recite
some poems in Lithuanian.
I will try to remember by heart.
I have here a poem, if you could... translated into Lithuanian, because I have the Romanian translation.
Yes.
I will read the Romanian translation, but first of all, the floor is yours.
Oh, so you want me to begin?
Yes, Sibe.
Yes, Sibe. Okay, so I'm going to recite in Lithuanian.
Par cœur.
Aš sutikau Sibę tą vakarą, kai niekas nesitikėjo jos matyti. Ji išėjo iš pilkų debesų, iš gražiausių sapnų, sėdėjo, kalbėjo man žodžius, kuriuos aš nesupratau, bet kuriuos turėjau suprasti. Sibė buvo tarsi mano veidrodis, buvo iš manęs, manyje ir su manimi. Ką antrame būdu?
Sibe. Când m-am trezit, am văzut-o pe Sibe. Nu-și ascundea ochii ei ca de lună, ori documentul inclus în volumul de tracăl. Astfel, dezvăluind că murise de multă vreme, dădea de înțeles că trebuie să ne despărțim. Probabil nu pentru totdeauna, până ce inimii mele i-aș fi promis să aduc pe vreunul. Poate nu în acvariul din echinocțiu, dar în acvariul dorinței, al bătrâneții, ori al uitării. Atunci s-ar întoarce și ea, ca o mișcare, o trăire, o tăcere, ori ca vreun sunet încă neauzit, forțându-mă a uita ce ar fi de amintit, trezind ce era uitat, fiind în același timp de o parte și de alta. Vorbindu-mi cu vocea nașei, a mamei, a vrăjitoarei, împrăștiind rămășițe din diferite istorii. Va trebui să adun acele istorii împrăștiate, să le așez împreună pe scara timpului, spre a putea vedea punctele de contact, astfel încât să înțeleg adevărul lui Sibe, care va fi încă multă vreme învăluit în pânza lui de păianjen care se va întinde. Va apărea ca semnele de ortografie în volumul de tracăl și se vor sprijini pe întoarcerea ceasului ce va fi stat. Sau one of my concerns in Romania is to give to the writers the opportunity to have an important role in society. The modern Romanian state was created following a pilgrimage, following the writers in 19th century. Mm-hmm. They had a brilliant role, a fundamental role in the modernization of the Romanian society. Unfortunately, during the communism, some of writers had an approach, a position against the dictatorship. After 90, they lost their role. They have maybe a marginal role in society now, and my concern is to put the writer on the role he deserves, which is the situation in Lithuania. You're a member of the Union of Writers in Lithuania, of course.
Yes, I am.
I mean, you have the same perception like me, the same feeling that the writer doesn't have an important role?
I do agree, but I was thinking about everything, about nowadays situation, how is everything somehow mixed, and there are so many attitudes, so many ways. I agree with your position totally, but what is going to be now in our writer society, I would say that there are some sides or some parts of writers that the ones who belong to this new generation, you know, that
born after 90.
Exactly, yeah, born after 90. They don't consider this prehistory. They don't consider, I called it prehistory because for them it's prehistory. They don't know the background. They don't know those even Soviet Union times that we had to...
But I think they are vulnerable because if they don't feel that danger, they could be contaminated by it. And this is the same thing in Romania. There is some approach to come closer to progressivism, to, to leftist ideology, coming from the past with, of course, with a reshape. And I think it's the same in Lithuania.
It is, and they are very, vulnerable, as you said, and very, they don't have how I call this strong background, and everybody can influence them because they are flexible, and they are very easy to use. So they don't have this very strong positions about.
But maybe we didn't have. We are not able to educate them. We neglected to educate them and to describe the communism as it was really.
I think we were a little bit relaxed at some time, and we didn't put the pressure. Because when I'm talking about myself, I still started going to school in Soviet Union times, so I had to... I also didn't know about my destiny of my grandparents who were exiled to Siberia, who suffered a lot, who, there were some resistant fights.
And they came back from Siberia, or
some of them. Yeah, because some were buried there, died there. They were in Krasnoyarsk region. But some of them came because they were strong people. And only after we regained independence, when I was about, I'd say, 17 years old, they started to describing me because they didn't feel fear anymore. And because they, all the time, even to very close people, they were afraid to tell what they underwent.
My grandparents, my ancestors, they came from Anatolia after the massacre. They were survivors from the genocide. And I wrote a book about them. Herta Müller, winner of the Nobel Prize, born in Romania, and she's a German. She wrote about the exile of Germans to the former Soviet Union. You didn't have the incentive to write about what's happened to your grandparents, to your family.
I wrote.
You wrote about that.
But it's a very symbolic book. Maybe I took some fear from my grandparents, and I didn't talk very openly.
With their names? With their names,
no,
or?
It's not documenting. It's fiction. It's actually, again, some symbolic phrases. I didn't describe Siba, by the way. She acts in, because you see what I did, I mixed poetry with prose in that novel.
As a poems in prose?
Yes. So I try
like
to
Saint
speak...
George Perse or Charles Baudelaire.
Yes.
Poems in prose.
So I try to speak about this in a very, not very open way. But as far as I understood, very only few critics or readers understood what I meant. But most I have some sources. I have some memories left from my relatives. From
maybe
my
sometimes,
yes.
Maybe sometimes you'll return to this thing.
I'm not too mature for that. I think still I'm not too mature because you have to somehow put into your blood this thing, and I didn't have such.
But
experience.
now you are on your own because your grandparents are not anymore with you.
Yes. I am, that's true. Yeah.
Some projects for the medium run or long run terms?
Yes.
Which one?
If you let me, I wouldn't reveal because when I told anybody, nothing goes. It collapses.
I have a friend. He's very very well known in the theater. Matei Vishniek. He gave me an advice. He said, "No, you have not to tell anything about the book you write,
yes,
because it's linked to the fulfillment, to the success of the book." Yeah, I understand that.
So thank you for not insulting.
And what about your students? They are readers. They read books. What about the public lectures with them? You feel that they are attracted by literature? Because in Romania, I have to confess that in Romania, my colleagues, they say, those students, they don't read anything.
Very few of them only, very few, very little. But you see, I also have some lessons in gymnasium with younger pupils, and they are more
teenagers.
Yeah, they show more curiosity than those students. I don't know why. I can't explain the reason, but this problem that you mentioned exists in Lithuania too. There are very, very few students who would really be interested in, in fiction and all those. Even in our Lithuanian historical, stories that. As far as I understood, you have to be proud of it. You have to somehow feel, wish to reveal it, to know it. But such enthusiasts are very few.
So, Jurga, so the Union of Writers in Romania, we have now a project to close relations with similar organizations in Europe, and maybe to create a network, not the pen club, because pen club is with individuals, not with organizations. And this network, this cyberspace, literary cyberspace, could express with single voice toward the European Commission and others the rights of the writers. And so I think that your visit here in Romania could be a good opportunity for the links between Union of Writers in Romania and how is the name Union of Writers in Lithuania, and you have to be a pillar for this effort, and I hope you'll help us to establish the connection between the two unions. So with this optimistic assumption, thank you very much, Jurga, for coming here in Romania, and see you soon.
Thank you for inviting.